we are delighted to welcome all of you at this first session of Doing Business in France. And today we will tackle with our your expert in France and the British Embassy on compliance requirements for working in France. First, I would like to ask you to put your microphone in mute to avoid noises. And if you have got questions during the presentation, please put it on the chat. However, at the end of the presentation, there will be a question and answer session. So, Luc, would you like to start?
Of course.
From British Embassy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Catherine. I'll be very quick on this first slide, but this is just to say that we're approaching the end of our Europe Trade Month. It's been a campaign, a month-long campaign of events, activities all across Europe to encourage, to give the insights, the skills to UK exporters to trade or to encourage trading with our largest UK trading partner, the EU. And so today's webinar, I'm very glad to say, is also part of this campaign. So that's all I've got to say on the Europe Trade Month. Other than actually, sorry, by the way, we have made recordings of all the activities and the events that we put on over the last month. These are very useful recordings for any UK exporter that is thinking about exporting to France, whether that's to France or whether that's to Europe. These are going to be uploaded to YouTube very shortly. So I'll make sure that all attendees here today will get a link to these recordings too. Could we pass on to the next slide, Catherine? And yes, we can really get into it today. We can start off with our case study. So today we thought we might do the webinar a little bit more differently. This time round, we really want to present and explain to everyone in the call through or via a case study how these services and our network here in Your Experts with the Your Experts in France group, the Franco-British Chamber and the Embassy can help any UK exporter with no matter what question they might have, small to extremely large. So, I mean, you guys have had now a sneak peek of the slides to come, but today's case study, we're looking at, let's say we have a company, I think that red pin there in the UK, that's probably around Slough area. So we have a UK company based in Slough, which wishes to send a manager over to France to develop their current branch that they already have established. Just to briefly explain this customer journey, the company's MD reaches out to the UK government for help. Our advisors within the Department for International Trade, DIT, who don't have the in-house expertise to advise, suggest speaking with the Your Experts in France group for the main do's and don'ts with this question and this challenge. And their goal is to grow by 50 employees this branch in the next 12 months. So DIT, if we can move to the next slide, please. Yes. I can explain from DIT, the embassy side, how this might happen. And by the way, that was my contact details just there, luke.sexton@fcdo.gov.uk if you'd like to reach out to me. So from Slough to France, the customer journey. Now this is going to be fairly quick, but I've got a simplified diagram here, just because I think it's really useful to revisit and really make clear sometimes the process of how a company in the UK might find the best placed person to answer their question or challenge. Because I think sometimes this can get really confusing and it might make the challenge or the question bigger than it actually is, and therefore put off the UK company. But here you can see a very rudimental, very basic diagram of loads of bubbles. On the left-hand side, you've got the UK, and on the right-hand side, you have France. I've kind of grouped together the point of contacts that a UK company will find very useful to reach out to in order to find the answer to the question that they're asking. So on the left-hand side, we have in the blue bubbles, we have Chambers of Commerce, we have the ESS, the Export Support Service, and the Export Academy, and also the Europe Trade Hub. Now, these are the three main that we typically see here at Post in France, in Paris. these are the three main sort of multipliers of inquiries. These will be the initial starting point for a UK company. A UK company will, in most cases, reach out to their local Chamber of Commerce to speak with an international trade advisor. There I can actually see that there's a couple of international trade advisors on the call today, which is great to see. But they will reach out and speak with their ITA, International Trade Advisor. How can or who should I speak to answer my question? The ITA will subsequently put them in contact with either myself or a couple of colleagues here at DIT France, who, if we can't answer the inquiry straight away, or, I mean, at minimum, we will give you a very good level of advice and we'll have a very nice conversation. But if we can't give you the exact answer you're looking for, then we're more than happy to suggest a contact within our network or the Your Experts in France group of the Franco-British Chamber to help you find the best placed person to give you your answer. Now, what's the advantage of this and why we do this? Well, firstly, this process, and I hope it's the best process there is, saves you time, saves you money, minimizes your risk, and it acts as a one-stop shop for most of your questions. I would be very, very surprised if there's a question we can't answer for you guys. So that's very quickly, that's a very quick description and explanation of why a company might come to us, how a company might come to us. But I just want to add a personal point here. I feel very strongly about minimizing the risk when it comes to exporting, not to France, not just to France and not just to Europe, but in general, especially for SMEs, for smaller companies. This can be such a challenge. I really just want to help companies out there who this might feel very big to them and therefore might be under pressure to take some decisions or certain decisions. I really hope that from this webinar and from the two previous webinars as well, you feel very confident now to speak with any of us, all these experts here in the call, to minimize the risk and to make your journey here as smooth as possible and as fun as possible. So that was a very quick description of the customer journey. But if we move to the next slide, please, Catherine. Hopefully I can now explain here how we can facilitate this journey, how DIT, the Department of International Trade, can facilitate working with external partners overseas, specifically in France in this case. So I've got 4 points here, but I'm going to start with point number 3 and point number 4 first. These 4 points have actually come from our new export strategy that was released, I think, on Wednesday last week. We haven't had an export strategy since 2016, I believe. So it was kind of time that a new strategy was produced that's fit for purpose, and which essentially explains how DIT sees themselves supporting UK companies in response to feedback that we've had. So if I start with point 3 and point 4, these are kind of initiatives that have been explained and have been outlined in the new export strategy that aren't financially orientated, but nonetheless are really good initiatives to help support UK exporters in their export strategy. So the first point we have here is Export Champions. Now, our Export Champions is a great initiative to help UK companies who are currently exporting and turn them into one of our flagship UK companies, give them the marketing, the presence that they deserve overseas and in country as well. You'll be joining a network of high-level exporters across the whole of the UK, and you can benefit from a wide range of marketing opportunities. So that could be featuring in one of our high-level DIT campaigns, have access to several media opportunities, or even hosting some of our ministers or VIPs on visits to your site in the UK, or maybe a site in France, or wherever it might be across the world. This is a really good group to be a part of. We also have point 4 here, a pilot now. We're piloting a new UK trade show access program, UKTP. Some of you in this call may know of TAP, which was the Trade Access Program. That was running until last year. So it hasn't been running for the last year. We all have had COVID, so it's quite it's been very difficult to run that trade access program initiative and program. But we now have a new trade show program which will be launched soon. This program is here to help support SMEs with grants or via grants and via trainings and via the provision of market research, attend trade shows across the globe and essentially make the most out of these trade shows. Trade shows are really important, especially for SMEs. I find since September, I've been spending a lot of time in France, going to several different trade shows now, and just from conversations that we've been having, we really feel the importance of trade shows kicking in and having those face-to-face conversations again, rather than Microsoft Teams chats. But finally, I just want to finish my part here before I hand over to Anne-Helene on kind of HR services, how we can also support you financially in terms of your export strategy. I think from what I know from the Federation of Small Businesses, from the UK Food and Drink Federation, and I think even from the CBI, over the spring and the summer, there was a lot of calls on the government, on the UK government, to increase and improve the financial support that they offer to, well, specifically SMEs, but in general to exporters. These 2 points here, I think, have gone some way to answering that demand for support in terms of money. The number one, the first point here, the European Regional Development Fund, which we've nicknamed the Internationalization Grant, is a match grant funding for an SME company of up to £9,000. Now, there is a very, very wide range of activities and events or visits or essentially export related activities that we can attribute this match funding to, this grant. So please, if you do have any plans, or you have something on your mind that's okay, there's going to be a couple of costs incurred here, please either reach out to myself or reach out to your local Chamber of Commerce and your local international trade advisor, who can sit down and work with you on building an export action plan or strategy, where we can tot up the kind of costs that you might incur over the next year or over a certain period, and we can pay for you to go to France and speak with consultants about a couple of issues or questions that you've been thinking of recently. It's been a really good fund that I've used personally quite a lot now with my portfolio of clients. We have been guaranteed that for 2022 there's £32 million in the pot, just to make everyone aware. And finally, to finish on, the UKEF, UK Export Finance, which I don't think gets as much credit as it deserves. It's a great facility or financial mechanism that exporters should be making use of. Here I've just listed 3 of their kind of financial mechanisms that can help UK exporters. Here we have letter A, or point A, the Export Development Guarantee, which is a very large, big time sort of financial support service, which provides 80% guarantees on loans of over 25 million. So maybe this is something for a couple of us here today for looking for planning towards the future. But point B and point C, we have the General Export Facility, the GEF. We've improved that from, instead of having a facility of £2 million, you can now access a facility of £5 million of working capital. This is to support general or overall business growth. So for companies who are looking to improve their cash flow, the GEF is a great tool and a tool of assistance as well. And also finally, the bills and notes guarantee, which we've tried to simplify as best as possible to help SMEs specifically when it comes to purchases from overseas buyers. They can have access to those funds immediately rather than seeking payment, rather than receiving payment 30 or 60 days later. The UKEF will take control of that and will seek payment from your buyer within the agreed time frame. So hopefully here I've just explained a great deal of practical, pragmatic support that you have access to. But if you'd like any more information on that, please feel free to speak to me after this webinar. We can have a conversation on Teams, or if you ever come to France, we can meet one-to-one. But it's been a great 3 webinars that I've been a part of, and please make use of the experts that we have here today as best as possible. So with that, I'm happy to pass over to Anne-Hélène, who can hopefully talk to you.
I'm sorry, Luc. Thank you, Luc.
No worries.
What's going on with these things?
Here we go. I think we're going in the right direction now.
Yes.
There we go.
So,
Anne-Hélène.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you very much, Luc. So good afternoon. I'm Anne-Hélène Squarneck. I'm the HR expert in your expert in France team. I created my consultancy services to provide HR expertise to British and international companies which have subsidiaries in France. So I will go through the case study from an HR perspective, obviously, knowing that the company we're talking about had 3 different challenges. So the first challenge was to relocate some English managers and employees in France. The second one is to keep the existing French team, on board. And the third one was to recruit some people, French and foreigners. So they had very big challenges to settle in France. They didn't have a recruitment department, so I advised them to work with a recruitment agency, either based in France or based in England, but which had a very good knowledge of the French market and a very good network in the French sector. And that was very, very important because, and what I'm saying is a real fact, like foreign company, we choose their own English recruitment agencies to recruit in France, take more time to find the right talent for the French office. So I worked closely with the managers for the recruitment, and I did some interviews, to ensure that the candidate would fit, I would say, the company's culture, but also the French culture. This is quite important. So we had the right talent, and at the same time, I did an audit of the French HR internal process, because basically they already have a team in France. And when I did this HR audit, I discovered that the collective bargaining agreement wasn't the right one. We call it the CBA, depends on the sector and the industry of the company. And Etienne will go through that in more depth later on. But because the CBA wasn't the right one, we decided to change it, which was a little bit laborious. So therefore, I would strongly advise to check with the lawyer what is the right CBA before settling in. And this is very, very important. So after the audit, we had the right talent, we had the right CBA, people were coming to France, so we need to move now to the contracts. In terms of contracts in France, we've got different type. We've got fixed term contract, we've got open-end contract, and we've got other contract also depending on the collective bargaining agreement the company is affiliated to. So you have to choose the contract, not only on if it's a fixed term or open-end contract, but you have also to take into account the working hours, which will have an impact in the contract. Etienne again will go through the working forfeit, but this is very important as well to think about it when going through the contract. We also have to think about the autonomy of employees as it dictates the type of contract you will sign. In France, we've got this very old-fashioned thing, which is the cadre and non-cadre. And also these 2 different groups will dictate whether the type of contract you need. So yeah, what I'm saying is when you want to settle in France, when you're opening a branch, you have to double check all different type of parameters to ensure you cover everything and you won't, and basically you're not at risk. And that's what I'm doing with my clients. Then we moved to the onboarding, and the onboarding was quite critical because we needed to ensure that the whole team were all together to work efficiently. So the onboarding, we needed to take into account the difference in the culture. So and to make it very simple, we did some onboarding buddy. We had some onboarding buddy for each employee, a French with an English one. So it worked really well. We created as well some Leave My Working Life event, and some kind of shadowing between departments. So it would allow I would say each employee to see what's going on in the other department and to work all together in order to learn as well from each other and to share their best practices, because at the beginning there were practices in France and then practices in England, and when we needed to put everything together. Then we have the team, we've got the contract, we've got the CBA. We needed to build, to retain the talent, because I mean, that's I would say that's a worldwide issue. Everybody sees that in HR today, that how to keep and retain talent. So our challenge in that was to ensure that we built a good company culture. That was very important. Basically, we also needed to invest in their career growth. In France, we've got a government, I would say government company, which help in terms of financing some the training. So that is very important, because most of the foreign company I'm working with don't know that. So I'm the link between my client and this organization, training fund, basically, to get some financial funds, some French funds for the training. So we also needed to promote some flexibility when possible, because again, managers would need to travel from France to England, and obviously we need to put some work from home rules as well, within the French rules, but which were also acceptable for foreign employees. Obviously, we needed to work also on motivation and engagement, which was very important in order, again, to build this very strong team together, and also to be prepared for the turnover and succession planning, which was very important. Aside that, so that was the main issue that we worked together. There was also some mandatory actions that we needed to tackle to avoid financial risks. And that depends very much on the size of the company. And the mandatory action starts with one employee. And that's very important. The company needs, we choose together the occupational physician that needed to work with us in terms of medical surveillance of employee. That is very important, and that is mandatory in France. If you've got like some kind of a work inspector, labor inspector coming in, that would be the first thing that they would ask, basically. Above 11 employees, you also need to, we prepared and organized the election of the employee representative. And I'm working very closely with Etienne Pujol, our lawyer, on that, because this is a very important issue as well. Again, working very closely with Etienne to choose how to keep track of working time and time off, as again, this is a legal obligation in France. As we were around 50 employees, we also created the internal rules dealing with matters in terms of disciplinary actions, safety, and all the moral and sexual harassment. And this is very important. It also take all the rules of the company that employee can have a look at and get all the information that they need. I'm just to conclude, I would say what is very important in France, and as HR, I always say that everything is fine until something goes wrong. So my role really is to ensure that we are in the right path within the legal obligation of France. It seems all that seems for foreign people as they, oh my God, this is a little bit laborious and it's very hard, but it's not at the end, because when you've got, I would say, the right expert, it's getting quite easy. And what I like doing as well in my role is to really train the HR, my counterparts HR in England. And that's very important because it allows them as well to understand what I'm doing, how we're doing it, and why we're doing it. What is quite important, the last bit I would say would be to guide the managers and the French employees in France, or like foreign manager, regarding the do's and don'ts in France. And because sometimes managers say, oh, I know that France is very strict in terms of law. Can I do this, or can I do that? Can I say this, or can I say that? What can I say, basically? So my role is to help them and say, okay, yeah, you can say that. That's fine, no problem. But just be careful the way you say it. So it's really very much guiding managers to within their own role. So I would say everything is settled in France in terms of HR. Now I'll pass it on to Etienne, who will go through the legal parts of it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
First, Anne-Hélène, we have got a question. David Eddad asked on the chat, how about UK established company not operating in France and without office in France that want to hire one employee based in France, French resident in home office mode, to look after their international operations outside France? Do the UK need to establish a permanent enterprise in France? What are the procedures for this kind of setup? Are there any corporate tax obligation for the UK company in this case? Would you mind can you answer to some of those questions?
Well, yes, I'm not the expert, and when I say when I'm the expert, I can answer, and my answer is yes. You can open, you can have some employees working in France without a branch, but I'm not the expert on how to do it. We've got Etienne, who could give you more information, and we also have an accountant in our group, who's called Thomas Bidou, which is an expert who could help you with this as well. So maybe either Etienne would can answer this question better than myself, but my first answer is yes, this is possible.
Thanks.
Indeed. It is indeed possible, and it was the purpose of our first topic with Luc in October, when Thomas and I introduced the fact that it was possible for a foreign employer to recruit a French employee with a home office, will provide with a bilingual French and English language versions of an employment contract, and Thomas will handle all the relationship with the French administration, both tax and social security, without having the burden of establishing a permanent establishment in France, with this audit to be made as to whether this person will handle commercial activities or not, which would trigger the tax impact. If the person making that question could go on the YouTube link that Luke referred to earlier of our first session, it will be better explained and in greater detail explained. But if not, then please feel free to call us. Our platform of experts will answer to you in this respect. Coming back to the case study of our webinar today, my purpose, as Anne-Hélène was mentioning, we were very closely together because when this person would come to France, we need to prepare a proper employment contract with him. And most of the questions that the client will ask us relate to how we draft a proper employment contract in France, because there are differences with the way UK persons draft employment contract. The first item to consider and to talk about, as Anne-Hélène was explaining, was what is in the collective bargaining agreement, what is provided for in the relevant collective bargaining agreement. They depend on the industry sector the company or the group works with, and the relevant industry sector collective bargaining agreement will provide with some key figures, key aspects of the employment relationship. The first one is the minimum wage, depending on the level of the employee, the level of seniority or expertise of the relevant employees, and they relate to the minimum wage, which can differ from the one provided for in the labor code. So this is something that needs to be analyzed. The other aspect that the collective bargaining agreement refer to is the duration of the trial period and the possibility to renew the trial period. The trial period can be, in the example of this managing director coming to France, it will be considered as a cadre, which means that the trial period would be 4 months, and in certain circumstances can be renewed once, so that the trial period can be up to 8 months, which is a good way to think about it and to think about the fitness of the candidate with the job that is offered. And the other main provisions of the collective bargaining agreement are the working time regulation Anne-Hélène was referring to. It's very important to address how many hours per week the employee will be entitled to, what will be the minimum wage attached to this working time regulation, and the possibility to work under what is called the forfait jour, which is another way of assessing the working time regulation, which is not in hours per week, but in days per year, which gives the employer much more flexibility as to the way someone would work remote and would not have the burden of assessing when he starts working every day, when he terminates working every day. And so it's something that can be provided for in the relevant industry level collective bargaining agreement, but something that also needs to be taken into consideration as far as collective bargaining agreement is concerned is the fact that the company itself can have entered into collective bargaining agreement, so at the company level, not at the industry level, to tailor-made some kind of working regulations, such as the working time or the teleworking, home working, and also the use of devices and the fact of going on the internet and security compliance and so on. So the company itself can also have CBAs at its level, and it's something that needs to be taken into consideration. And if not, then it is something that can be implemented with Anne-Hélène and myself. The other aspect the other questions that can occur at this occasion is what is notice period if something goes wrong? What is notice period? There are two categories of notice period. The one during the trial period, and here something that is very important is that the notice period during the trial period is for the employee of up to 2 days, 48 hours, which is very short. If you want to replace the employee and the manager, it will take more time than 48 hours. That's something very important the employers may not know or may not be aware of, that the employee the maximum notice period during trial period is 2 days, which is very short. On the employer side, the notice period during trial period can be of up to 1 month. And after trial period, the notice period is up to 3 months, both ways, for the employee and for the employer. Now, coming to the other question, with maybe the major question that is raised is, how do I pay my employee? There is obviously the minimum wage that is provided by French code or the collective bargaining agreement. So there is no maximum, obviously, but there is the fixed salary. Then there can be commission plans, and commission plans in French can be very, there are a lot of questions that needs to be asked before we draft the proper employment contract, is when there are commissions, when they are paid, is it for salesperson upon invoicing of the client, or upon receipt of the money from the client? If there is a delay in the payment of the relevant commission plan, if the employee needs to be physically present when the commission is paid, and so on. So many questions that we need to ask you before we draft the proper provision in the employment contract. But then there are many aspects that employers need to, and foreign employers need to know before agreeing upon the remuneration of the employee, is that when we do have profit sharing plans that can be implemented that are with social charges that can be lower than the regular social charges for mere salaries. And so profit sharing plan can add up to the remuneration of the employee. So that needs to be taken into consideration in the negotiation of the remuneration. And on top of that, that can be also share or equity-based remuneration. So providing free shares, for instance, or stock options. These are tools that can be negotiated at the company level that benefit from social incentives to do so. So this can also be taken into consideration in the remuneration structure. So that's very important. And as Stéphane and Paulette will inform you, the salary in France is all inclusive, which means that the salary and the social charges attached to the salary already include the relevant pension contribution, healthcare coverage, so that there is it's something that needs to be taken into consideration as a benefit in kind for the employees. But Stéphane and Paulette will talk to you a little bit more about that in greater detail, because they do provide for the appropriate coverage for the relevant employee. And last part, so the forfait jour, I wanted to refer you in this respect, because when the management is abroad, it's very difficult to assess the working time in France. So the working on the numbers of days per year is much more convenient, but needs to be covered by the appropriate collective bargaining agreement. So this is something that needs to be taken into consideration for French employees. Other questions can be non-compete, but I don't have time to go on that, but please bear that in mind. And the setting up also of the Works Council, and Hélène was referring to that. It's compulsory to have a Works Council when the employee structure is above 11 employees over a 12 months period. So that's very important to set up the appropriate Works Council when it is the case for the French branch or subsidiary of this group we are referring to in this case study. I'm ending with my 8 minutes time slot, so I'm handing over now to Fiona with respect to what needs to be taken into consideration for a British person to come over to France. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Etienne. Good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Fiona Mougenot, and I started Expat Partners, which is an immigration practice 18 years ago. We provide assistance and service for British nationals and for international clients as well. Now, going back into this fascinating case study. First of all, I think one of the most important points to remind everybody is that British nationals who come to France in most cases, to work, even if it's for one day, are going to require a work authorization. And you need to assess this very, very carefully, because that's where, if there are auditors from the labour inspection who come in, especially onto a client site, the liability is not only for you, the employer, but also for your client. So the other points that are important to remember is that if the person is coming in for under 90 days during a 180-day period, that's the famous horrible Schengen ruling, which is always complicated because it's rolling. So you have to keep going back and moving forward to see the number of days you can come in. And that includes all travel to all of the Schengen countries. So if you're managing a group like this group of 50 people, the first thing that somebody like Anne-Hélène is going to say to the HR person is you're going to have to run an Excel spreadsheet and find out if any of them have been going to other of the Schengen states for their holidays, because that is going to count into this famous 90-day count as well. The other important thing to remember for short term is that a lot of people are going to be on detachment, secondment, and a prior detachment or posted worker declaration is absolutely mandatory, except for those who are independent contractors. So that is a very important part. And the other thing which Etienne certainly I should think would run through as well is about having a legal representative, which is the legal representative is going to represent the foreign entity in France if there is not a foreign entity here in France, with the labour inspection as such. Now, going back into our case study, we have our manager. So for our manager, who was the top priority, and I had to find a solution for the manager, we had two solutions that we could actually propose for this person. One is if the assignment was going to be 1 to 3 years, we could have him on what we call an ICT detachment permit category. The benefits of that is the fact that he's going to remain on his home country, his UK employment contract, payroll in the UK, and UK social security. So from an HR perspective, providing Etienne and Anne-Hélène have looked together to check various things like working hours and his role, that could probably be an easy solution to have him over here for 1 or 2 years as such. Under that, he's going to require work permit, visa, residence permit. Now it's a package, and the package is that it's an expedited process, and he's going to apply directly at the French consulate for his work authorization and visa. And once he has his visa, he can travel into France and he can start to work immediately. So that's quite good. And the processing time, and I'm being very conservative because that's the way I work, it's 3 to 5 weeks from the date of filing at the consulate. The other solution, especially if there's a consideration that he could be here for over 3 years, is to move him onto a French employment contract, which was discussed before. And there one would use a talent passport employee on assignment, or salarié en mission, which we call SEM. There, French employment contract, payroll, and French social security. Again, the benefit is that it's expedited. He files directly at the French consulate. Those two categories also have a further benefit, which very often has to be taken into consideration, is that many of them have accompanying spouses. Now, accompanying spouses under both of these categories will be issued with a permit that authorizes them to work. So that's something which, again, HR normally is going to be looking at, but would take into consideration. The talent passport SEM is valid for 4 years and can be extended, but you do have to remember that they are on assignment. So Etienne, in this case, would be also preparing the employment contract, but it would be what we call a light employment contract. Why do we call it a light employment contract? Because you don't have to put everything or all of the requirements of the French labour law that are used in the usual manner on the employment contract. You just need to put part of it in there. And the other important thing to remember is that even though the company is going to be required to pay into the unemployment fund, the ACIDIC, and the employee is going to be contributing, the employee will never be able to benefit from that fund. Both of these permits are totally linked to when they are working in France unemployed. So if the employment contracts for some reason or another stopped, they are required to leave the country as such. How difficult is it to obtain a visa and permit? This is a question which comes up regularly. Something which is slightly difficult for experts always to reply to. And what I always say is that the main key is the documentation. It's got to be very clearly documented and well documented. They don't have to have 100 pages. In a matter of fact, they don't want to see 100 pages because they haven't got time, but it's got to be clearly documented for each of the categories. When the visas are issued, as I said, they can move to France. And the key point also to remember is that for those who are on detachment, they must have their UK A1 form. Now, when I say they must have, a lot of the time that takes a couple of weeks to obtain or a little bit more. So it is accepted that in the application package, you could put in that you have applied for that and also a copy of the application for that. Remember that employees who are on detachment are not authorized to work on a client site. That's a very important point also. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to your experts in France. And I'm going to pass over now to Paulette Booth from AXA International. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. I'm the co-founder and manager of AXA International. We are dedicated English-speaking AXA agent are things that the business needs to consider for its branch in France. So the initial questions a company normally have are insurance, and for the company itself, what are the insurance requirements in France for a business? For us, once we've established the main activity of a business, we will then look at premises if the company has a physical office or factory. Not all companies with a branch in France do. And if they do, what equipment and content does the business have? The three main areas of business insurance in France are employee and key person protection, liability insurance, and material damage. Business insurance in the UK is typically made up of public liability, employer's liability, professional indemnity, and if they have premises, buildings and contents insurance. So you can see it's not too dissimilar to what you're probably used to insurance-wise in the UK. So I'll move on to what our recommendations would be on the next slide. So looking first at the employee and key person protection. Manager who's moving to France and would cause a large financial loss if something happened to them, then it is possible to earn policy on the manager. The company can also consider if it would like to offer a company pension plan to employees, including the manager. Now, whilst providing a company pension scheme isn't compulsory in France, it can help very much make a company more attractive to work for. So if you're trying to advertise for new staff, certainly having a company pension scheme makes the company itself more attractive. If the company isn't providing a company pension scheme, we can help employees set up a private pension plan if it's something they do want to cover. Make life easier for the manager and for any future staff relocating to France, we can open an Axa Bank account before the manager's arrival in France. So the manager has the bank cards, the account open, the bank details for payroll, and they can hit the ground running when they arrive in France. Regarding property and vehicle insurance, things like that's also very easy to arrange with our dedicated English-speaking agency. And we also offer a discount for employees of businesses that are insured with us. Now, whilst helping to open a bank account and arrange personal insurance, this is not a business insurance, nor is it a requirement by an employer. It certainly does take away a lot of stress for employees who have staff relocating to France to work for the company. It's just one of the extra stresses taken away. I'll move on to look at the actual business insurance. So if we look at insuring assets for material damage, this will include, if the company has premises, insuring the current premises and any future business premises, offices, factories, storage units, things like that. We do have quite a few companies with a branch in France who don't actually have any premises, and that's fine, nothing to insure there. If you do have premises, if the company has premises, then we need to consider what's inside the premises in terms of fixtures, fittings, stock, equipment, contents. Those contents could just be laptops and mobile phones of staff if they say they hire office premises and hot desks, things like that. So, the need is very, very different depending on each company. If the company will provide a vehicle to the manager, then we can arrange an insurance for that, provide a vehicles. And depending on the nature of the business, we can provide cover for technical, financial, environmental risks, cyber attacks, all adapted to the activity of the company. And then for the final part, just like in the UK, the business needs to cover any liability. The three elements of public liability, professional indemnity, and employees' liability are built within one policy, which is called Responsibility Civil Professionnelle, known because it's easier to say as RC Pro. And that covers the specific needs of an individual business rather than being separate policies. The policy is basically built to the needs of that company. You can also take an additional policy which provides legal protection, and this helps the business in the unfortunate event that a client takes legal action, or for example, you need to take action yourself, say if your the business e-reputation is damaged. So as you can see, rather than kind of a one policy fits all, cover that can increases in size and evolves. Okay, thank you. I'll pass you over to Stefan.
Yes, thank you, Paulette. I'm Stefan. I'm the Managing Director of Umbrella, a company I started in 2011. And I'm going to talk about insurance, people insurance, a very important topic for your employees. So yeah, if we continue with a case study with the company in France with 50 people, we made a simulation in order to provide a health group plan for your staff, for your French staff, with a comprehensive cover, meaning inpatient when you go to the hospital, outpatient when you go to the doctor, specialist, pharmacies, and so on, dental, optical, maternity, and well-being services. Let's say a full package. And if we deliver a life group plan as well, meaning death for any causes or accidental death, short-term or long-term disability, children education, etc. Sorry, it's not very funny topic here, but we have to engage this topic. We can customize, of course, the plan according to your HR strategy and according to NLN recommendations. So if we continue with this kind of plan with your staff, if we made an example of 25 employees with a cadre status, as we explained earlier, half non-cadre, 25 people, average of 38 years old. Imagine we get 25 spouses and 20 children. Then you can see the different budget you have to anticipate for the health plan and for the life plan, just below the screen. So it means that if you have a single family price, you have 3 levels of cover, basic, medium, high, and you can see the cost per month for the full staff and dependents. So the cost is not null. You have to anticipate this budget. And if you have the life plan, then we have a calculation premium per month only for the employees in this case, because we don't cover the dependents. You have to anticipate different amount depending on the status of your staff. So in this example, we are talking about 50 staff, but of course we can advise you for lower staff, especially if you open one single French employee company with only one employee. We can set up a health and life plan for your first employee, which will be valid for the future recruitments. But at least we can start with one employee. It's not an issue. If we go deeper with your British staff, well, it will be depending of the status. As Fiona explained, you have the different scenarios. But if your British staff is still related to your British company, it will be as an expatriate in France. Then we have to design a health and life plan, individual plan, if we have only one person, and it will not be connected to the French social security. So this is why we'll introduce a first Euro plan. We call it first Euro plan because the insurer will take care of any cost from the first Euro and not from the social security and the top up. So the budget, of course, is very different because the full cost will be supported by the insurer. And if we made a calculation, it will be depending of the age and, of course, the selected benefits. But you can anticipate at least 2,500 up to 4,000 euro per year for one person. If your British staff will get the French contract, then you will be connected to the social security, to the French social security, and then you will be able to join your health and life group plan for your French staff as the other employees. So that's something we have to define with you, depending of the choice of the contract for your British staff. Of course, what we recommend is to be compliant with your CBA, what we call collective labor agreement, depending of your industry, depending on the category of your company. It's always a very important point to design and to define the insurance benefits, the minimum that you have to provide to your employees. However, group plans are very popular in France, so it will be very important to evaluate your French staff request on health and life plan in order to provide the right solution for them. So depending of their age, depending of their habits, depending of their basically request. Again, should be checked with your HR policy and adapt your group plan to your HR strategy and recommendation from your HR. But don't worry, there are large offers of a group plan in France, many insurers. So we'll find out some solutions and some options. And of course, Umbrella, as a broker, we will be able to advise you to choose the best one and to support you during the life of your contract for joiners, leavers, and any special cases. We'll be here to help you in French and in English, of course. So that's what I can introduce today for the insurance, people insurance, and of course, don't hesitate to ask us any questions now or later. Thank you.
Thank you, Stéphane. So, willing to develop your business in France? Need a single point of contact for all your business issues? We are your solution in France with your expert in France, with the British Embassy and the Franco-British Chambers of Commerce. Is there any questions on the presentation? Is everything clear for everybody? I know that some of you have already left because it's 10 to 2, so a bit longer. I know that David had asked a question. Maybe he has got another one. No?
Thank you very much. Thank you for your help.
You're
Thank
welcome.
all of you for your quick reply, and I will liaise and contact tomorrow, Etienne, later on. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So if there is no questions, so I suggest that we end this session and hope to see you very soon at another session or events of the Franco-British Chambers of Commerce or British Embassy or your expert in France. And we wish you all a nice afternoon. Anyway, this session has been registered and will be on our channel, Franco-British Chambers of Commerce, YouTube, and on the website, as well on social media. Thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.